Okay, let's get started. So, happy Monday. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to hop on today and talk about should you be tracking your food? Should we be tracking our macros and also kind of the pros and cons of doing so? And also, like, is it even right for you? Like, is this even something that you should be doing? So I wanted to just jump in really quick and first off, like, what are macros? Okay, so macros are broken down into usually three um, categories. And so we got our carbohydrates, we got proteins, we got fats. And depending on who you talk to, alcohol could be another one that we track that falls in its own category, but that's a training for another day. Um, But a lot of the questions that I get is like, is there like, do I really need to track this, right? Um, and like, why do they play such a crucial part in like what I'm trying to achieve as far as my weight or fitness goals? And so, macronutrients are the primary nutrients that fuel your body. They support various physiological functions. And again, they are your carbs, your protein, your fat, and they just each have a very distinct role in what they do. So carbohydrates play a role in like your energy production and supporting your muscle growth. Protein is vital for building and repairing muscles post-exercise, and fat is essential for hormone production and appetite regulation. So we really need to find a balance of all of those. And again, alcohol also has an impact on the micronutrient profile in your diet. And again, sometimes it's referred to as like the fourth macronutrient. And so we just want to understand the purpose of the main three so you can kind of better craft your nutrition plan that meets your personal goals, regardless of what that is, whether that's building muscle, whether that's losing fat, whether that's maintaining. And I get that question a lot, like, do I need to track my food in order to help me lose weight? Well, the answer is it depends. If you have specific fitness or body composition goals, such as building muscle or losing weight, macronutrients matter, but tracking them isn't absolutely necessary to achieve those goals. It is, however, a really great tool that can help you achieve those goals with a little bit steadier progress and gives us the data to be able to manipulate those results in a little bit different way. And so um, there are also times when we do not want to track our food. So macro tracking or food logging or food tracking, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same. It does have its advantages, but it is not suitable for everyone. So something to just note, a concern that would be addressed in the very beginning is there like a link to any kind of disordered eating habits? So those who have a history of disordered eating might find that tracking your food can be really triggering or it can be stressful, as it's rooted in like that counting and budgeting of the energy sources. So people can achieve excellent health without rigorous tracking. So just know that. I want to preface that this whole thing with that. Um, if a person has a history of disordered eating behaviors or an unhealthy obsession with food tracking, methods like intuitive eating might be a better fit. And I can save that kind of for another day, but we are going to kind of dive into some other options at the end here as far as like if we're not using an app, what are some other options that we can do that might be a little less, that'll be more conducive to someone who might be triggered, or it might spiral us into some old habits of disordered eating. So I want to first talk about like what are the benefits of tracking your food in the first place. Okay, so benefit number one is it's going to create more awareness, especially in the types of food that you're eating. Not only going to bring the attention to like your overall calorie intake, but the quality and the type of those calories and where they're coming from. And so when you become more aware of what you're eating, you can, for one, build up a more diversified diet. You might notice, we're creatures of habit, and so we might notice a reoccurring pattern or a lack of certain food groups that you have in your daily nutrition. And this can encourage you to include a greater variety of nutrients and minimize, potential nutrient deficiencies as well. It can help you develop your own nutrition knowledge. So it gives you kind of that knowledge around different foods' nutritional profiles. So over time, this knowledge allows you to make more informed choices um, when you're not actively tracking. So like you'll know how much protein is in X amount of grams of chicken, and you'll just kind of know these things. And it kind of again uses that as a tool so that you can know in the future and not have to track forever, right? And you kind of start to memorize the foods that you normally grab for and like what that nutritional profile looks like. It's also going to encourage you to eat more mindfully. I know this might sound counterintuitive, but understanding the different macros in different foods can actually help with a mindful or intuitive eating. It's just like thinking of macros as numbers that you need to hit. They can also help you better start kind of connecting what you eat with how you feel as well. The second biggest benefit is tracking really helps to ensure that you're eating enough. This is one thing that I do run into a lot. A lot of my gals that I work with are under eating. They're eating somewhere around 11 to 1200 calories, which is what a toddler needs on a daily basis to just operate. And so tracking can make sure that you're eating for your energy demands. And again, this is very person dependent, but knowing that you're eating enough to support your workouts, that you're eating enough to promote muscle recovery, and also eating enough to inhibit like metabolic slowdown. So like dieting for long durations doesn't damage your metabolism, but the body does adapt to the weight loss. So expending less energy by slowing down your metabolism. So tracking your food can ensure that you're getting enough protein and you're not creating too large of a calorie deficit, both which can kind of limit that metabolic slowdown. The third biggest benefit is tracking provides the insights on how different foods affect your body. So it's not always about calories. It's how those calories make you feel. So this can bring up more awareness to like food intolerances or sensitivities that we have. If you're tracking specific foods, being aware of the amounts and the types of foods that you eat might help you to notice certain patterns that are happening. So over time, if you notice like bloating or fatigue or any adverse reactions after consuming certain foods, it might be an indicator of an intolerance or a sensitivity. And so this is kind of a good way of logging and tracking that and figuring it out, like what exactly is causing this discomfort or this reaction. Energy levels are also a thing to look at too. So, some might find that like eating more carbs actually improves their energy levels and workout performance. But on the other hand, some might find that eating more protein helps balance their mood and appetite. So kind of again, just finding what fits for you. And then, the correlation between your diet and your mental health is becoming a lot more clear in the research that is happening. And so like your mood, your mental well-being, you can kind of help identify patterns between consuming certain foods and mood fluctuations. For example, like excessive sugar intake might be linked to like some mood swings for certain individuals. So it just kind of arms you with more insight so that you are able to make a more informed decision about what you're putting into your body. And then you can tailor and change up the things in your diet, not just for physical results, but for mental and emotional well-being as well. Now, with good, there's always kind of the cons, right? There's definitely drawbacks to tracking your macros, tracking your food logging. It just is the nature of the beast, right? So the first drawback is tracking can be time consuming and it can be tedious. The commitment to diligently logging every single morsel it's not easy. And you'll have to be prepared for, that constant vigilance. So those who try to achieve the most precise tracking, like everything from like a splash of milk in your coffee to the extra drizzle of dressing in your salad, has to be accounted for. And this requires consistent attention to detail. It makes challenges of eating out, with conventional tracking. Dining out becomes a game of estimations. There's never going to be an exact science to that. Well, there's some restaurants that do offer nutritional information, but a lot don't. It makes it kind of tricky for those who are really keen on accurate tracking. And certain tracking methods, like I like to teach my clients the hand portion method, can help you track consistently and a little more easily when you are going to restaurants. And we'll get a little bit more into that hand portion method here in a second. Another drawback is it can kind of impact your social life. Needing to constantly measure and log can interfere with social engagements, turning simple pleasures like shared meals into a complex and like awkward way of like, oh, I got to calculate this. So the second drawback is it's impossible to calculate exact amounts. Not everything we consume comes with a neat little nutrition label. Even the foods that do come with a nutrition label, there can be inaccuracies in the reported like information that it gives you. So another things that make it really difficult is if you do homemade meals, or if you have like a varied nutritional profile. There's just a lot of potential for error. Some of the apps, just giving you different percentages and different sources of information, so they can be off by quite a large percentage. Plus different sources may just provide data for the same food item, and it can be kind of confusing. And then the third drawback is tracking doesn't account for food quality. So, you'll want to keep in mind your necessary macronutrients. Solely focusing on macros might lead to neglecting essential micronutrients, things like your vitamins, your minerals, your polynutrients, all those things that play very crucial roles in our overall health. Consuming processed foods that fit your macro profile might meet a numerical goal, but your body also needs fiber, it needs antioxidants and other beneficial compounds found in whole foods. So that whole it fits my macros, but I'm eating all this processed food is not really like equaling out, right? And then when it comes to like your digestive health, two foods might have a similar macro profile, but be very different in their fiber content. So like white bread and whole grain bread, for example, they have very similar macro profiles, but their fiber and polynutrient contents are greatly different. So kind of overlooking this aspect can impact digestion and overall gut health, and again, leading to feeling a little bit more bloated or less energy. And so, tracking offers a structured approach to achieving certain nutrients, and it's an essential approach to do it with a broader perspective on health and nutrition, but just be aware of these drawbacks, and don't obsess over them. It is meant to be kind of a guesstimation of where you are, and not like getting obsessive about it, right? And that's what I always tell my clients, like, this is kind of giving us an insight of where you are, but we don't need to obsess with it. So, it can feel a little daunting, especially like with all of the information available. And the key is really to find a method that's both accurate and sustainable for you. And so let's go through kind of the basics of how to do your tracking. So before diving into like the tools and the methods, there's some general things you should know about tracking and logging. So first, I want you to make sure that you understand food labels. Being able to read and interpret a nutrition label is a fundamental skill. This is a training that I have done in the past. If you want a copy of that, comment below, food label training, and I'll get that over to you. But you want to learn what each section means, including serving sizes, total calories, and that macronutrient breakdown. You also want to consider investing in a digital scale. Now, this is, again, another tool that can help you get precise measurements, ensuring that you're logging the exact portion that you're consuming. And again, it's something that you start to learn, and you don't need to weigh out every grain of rice every single time, but you will get a better visual of, okay, X amount of chicken in my hand is actually X amount of weight on the scale. And then you can kind of visually memorize what that looks like and repeat that process over, right? So that you're not having to measure it out every single time. And then just remember that consistency is key. So whether you're estimating or you're weighing your food, just be consistent in your method, and it's going to provide you with the most reliable results over time. So let's talk about traditional weighing and measuring. So when cooking and preparing meals for yourself, the best way to calculate is by weighing and measuring them. But here are some tips on how to do that successfully. So again, using that food scale. So for instance, if you're making like a chicken salad, weigh the raw chicken, vegetables, and any other components separately. And then consider measuring cups and spoons. While not as precise as the scale, they can be useful for liquids or ingredients that are kind of challenging to weigh. And then account for cooking. So the weight of certain foods can change significantly when cooked. So for example, 100 grams of raw chicken is not going to weigh the same as once it's grilled. So make sure you know that your food may change, and stay just consistent with how you measure and track it. So I want to go over another way of tracking your food, because again, sometimes these apps or these even food journaling can be a lot. So a thing that I teach my clients a lot is how to do the hand portion method. It kind of takes it's like a quicker and a little bit easier approach to guesstimating, again, not trying to get an exact science of how much food we are actually consuming. So we're going to use our hand as a tool. And so let's talk about protein first. So protein, 1 serving of protein is going to be the palm of your hand. Okay, so things like chicken, beef, tofu, 1 serving. Okay, vegetable portions is going to be about a fist-sized portion. It's typically recommended for your veggies. Okay, carbohydrates like grains, rice, fruit are going to be a cupped hand. Okay, that represents a portion. And then as far as fats go, general guideline is 1 thumb. And so this is things like oils, butters, nuts, seeds, avocado, those type of things. This is your 1 serving of fat. And I'll drop a little infographic below so you can kind of have that hand portion tool at your disposal. But this method is convenient and it's easy to understand, and it's excellent for those who prefer like flexibility and fewer calculations. And each hand portion correlates to an approximate amount of each macronutrient. And just know, again, it's all approximate, but there's been a lot of research, especially through like Precision Nutrition, which is who I'm certified through, that shows that using the hand portions to track your macros is 95% as accurate as carefully weighing, measuring, and tracking your food. So, but substantially less time and the convenience of having your hand, this measuring tool, like wherever you go, right? You're not just going to have that food scale in your purse every time you go out. So there's several different digital tracking tools out there. MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, Fat Secret, My Macros Plus, that can all be helpful. You just need to find one that kind of works best for you. They all have pros and cons, and these apps are going to best serve those who really want to get an accurate number for their macros and are willing to put up with the trade-offs such as meticulous tracking. But these tools usually have food databases. Sometimes they have barcode scanners that can really kind of save some time to log and save some custom recipes. But in some cases, tools like these, again, can contribute to the risk of disordered eating habits or fueling that thought pattern that can lead to disordered eating. So if it feels yucky in your body, don't do it, okay? Or think of it even as like an experiment of, I'm just gonna see as a baseline, but not get obsessive about making sure that I'm hitting every single macro. So some other things you need to know about tracking is that every individual is unique. So the standard macro ratios you often see, like the 40% carbs, 30% protein, 30% fat, those are general guidelines. And they depend on a wide variety of factors for your ideal ratio, and it might look completely different. Okay. Note that it's more than 3 numbers. Apart from carbs, proteins, and fats, make sure, especially us women, that you're tracking your fiber, you're tracking your macronutrients, your vitamins, your minerals, your alcohol, and your water intake. And this is going to ensure a very well-rounded approach to nutrition. Depending on how active you are, your macro needs are going to vary depending on, if you're doing intense workouts a few days a week, or your body might benefit from a higher intake of carbs after a strength training session. Additional protein can aid in muscle recovery. It's, again, very dependent on your activity level as well. And then your stress levels and sleep patterns can really influence how your body processes and uses those nutrients. Someone under chronic stress or with disrupted sleep might need to adjust, again, that macro distribution. Avoid obsessing. So while tracking can be beneficial, it can also lead to that unhealthy obsession with numbers. Remember that this is just a tool for understanding and not a strict rule you have to follow, okay? Biofeedback is also going to be key. So always consider signs from your body. Like if you're constantly tired, if you're constantly hungry or moody, it might be time to kind of reassess and adjust some things that don't align just right with how you're feeling. Okay. And so that leads us to like adjusting and reevaluating. Our bodies do change and our nutritional needs do too. So we do need to periodically reassess your macro ratios in the context of your current health goals, your activity levels, and how you're feeling day to day. And last but not least, consult with a professional. So if you're ever in doubt or you feel overwhelmed, consult with a coach. I'm your girl. Any questions, bring them to me. I can offer you some personalized guidance and ensure that you are nourishing your body in the most optimal way. So I do want to preface this with 2 really, really big mistakes that I see on using these apps, okay? Number 1 is do not get your calories and your macro calculations from the tracking app, okay? Now, I've fallen into this trap just like you, and until I personally worked with my own nutrition coach, I didn't realize how incredibly wrong that these apps are. They were suggesting like a 12 to 1400 calorie target. To lose weight, yeah, we need to be in a calorie deficit, and that means consuming less calories than your body requires to maintain its weight. But most calculators do not take into account your muscle mass, your years of dieting, your movement, or your intensity of your workouts or your hormones. Speaking to you ladies that are coming into perimenopause and menopause, okay? Your body is very smart. It adapts. And the lower and the longer you go, the slower your metabolism gets. Okay. So like 1200 calories means a 1200 calorie metabolism. So you may lose the weight at first, but it's not going to last super long. Okay. So another big mistake is when the app gives you credit for your exercise. So disconnect your smart device from the app that you're using. Do not track your exercise in that same app. It's going to give you a very unrealistic estimate of calories earned from exercise. And it can really, really throw you off for your goals. So don't track that. So if we're looking at weight loss, I just want to get, because that is like a very common goal that I see with my ladies is weight loss. And realistically, about a half a pound to a pound a week in a fat loss phase is fabulous. Any more than that, we do run the risk of losing muscle mass, which we do not want, especially if we are over the age of 40, okay? So here's a couple tips to just get started. I want you to track for 7 days. Eat exactly as you have been and just get a true 7-day average and include a weekend, okay? Because weekends happen every week. So then with that 7-day average, I want you to subtract 200 calories to get your new calorie goal. And if this number is below 1400, consider reaching out to me and we're going to kind of discuss that best path forward, because we do not want you eating under what your body requires to function optimally at your BMR. That's your number that like absolutely needs to not be messing up your hormones, not be messing up your digestion, your cellular systems, any of that, okay? And then protein goals. So let's start by multiplying 0.8 to 1 grams times your goal body weight. If you know your protein is over 100 grams a day, use the 1 as a multiplier, but most often it's not the case, okay? And then I want you to hit your calories and protein and start, and then let your carbs and fats just fall as they may, okay? I promise you, if you focus on a calorie target, a range, not just that one number, a range, and hitting your protein, a lot of times the carbs and fats fall right where they need to be, okay? And then next from here, I want you to continue to track, using different metrics. So not just the scale, take some photos, take some measurements, write them down and track it and stick with it. And if you do this and nothing changes in 2 to 3 weeks, then you can subtract another 100 calories from that number. Okay. So I hope this is a little bit longer training for tonight, but I hope you guys found some value and learned a lot about food tracking, pros, cons. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or cuss words for me, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to help support you any way that I can in your health and fitness goals. And I know it can be a little confusing and it can be a little daunting, but again, if we really just think of this as like an experiment to see where we are, tracking for these next 7 days, getting an overview and then bringing more awareness to ourselves of, oh, okay, looking back at this, I can see that, okay, I'm definitely eating too much sugar on this day. I wonder why. Oh, okay, Mondays are super stressful and I tend to reach for this. Like you can start coordinate or figuring out like some of your cravings that might be coming up. Like I'm always tired midday, or I'm always grabbing for chocolate at 2:30 in the afternoon. And by kind of looking back at your food recall, you can pinpoint, okay, well, I'm not eating enough protein or enough fiber in the morning and it's not getting me through to the afternoon, or I'm low on this micronutrient, and so this is probably why I'm craving this. It can be a really, really useful tool to dissecting. And if you need some help kind of navigating through that and dissecting that down, just reach out. I'm here to help. I hope you ladies have a wonderful rest of your day. Make it a great week. And I can't wait to hear your questions, comments, concerns, and cuss words. Drop them below.